We're back in the studio. There is an elephant in the room, and the elephant is that the topic of dying is something none of us like to think about or talk about. But we're going to talk about it today because it's so very important, and it can actually be helpful to us. And with me is Kim Mooney from Hospice Care of Boulder and Broomfield Counties. I'm so delighted to have you here. Welcome. And as I mentioned to you before, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation because it's something that I personally, as well as I'm sure most people I know, just try and put out of their minds. Mm-hmm. And it's not a very popular subject. Why do you think it is so hard to talk about?
Well, I think that death is often seen as something that we have no control over and something that's really frightening, totally mysterious. The unknown. But if truth be told, I think more people are really afraid of dying than they are of death. And with good reason, because dying, the dying process, can be very frightening if it's not managed, if you don't understand that you have choices around it. I think to back up a little bit, we have this gap in the circle of life where our elders are supposed to be, that elder wisdom. And if we don't have a circle of life that allows us to appreciate getting older, then when we come to dying, we're going to see it as a disastrous failure rather than the continuity of life happening.
So that's almost a pre-step, is to enjoy aging.
Yes. This isn't about just the last months of life. This is really about that whole process being part of a continuum. And our older people have incredible perspective on a lot of things, survival, change, and as we get older, I think you know, we get distilled into our essence. So if you look at the opportunities and the challenges and the tasks of end-of-life care, they really foster that distillation.
So I think it's fascinating that you said there's an opportunity. I've not thought of it as there being any opportunities in dying. And so what can you tell me? What about opportunities?
Well, I think that the continuum, the aging and the dying process can be one of our most profound inner growth periods. You know, we have a lot of life experience. We've learned which battles to fight. We know what it means to be fully human, and I think it takes a lot of courage to live with those profound truths and the spiritual awarenesses that come with it. But with that courage comes a whole different kind of transformation. Remember Betty Davis saying, aging isn't for sissies? I don't know a lot of old sissies.
So that's wonderful. So, and I like the word opportunities, and then there's that other word, challenges.
Challenges.
And tell me about the challenges.
I think the two greatest challenges I see are, first of all, being able to handle the big emotions. Because usually when you're dealing with end-of-life care, the first thing that comes up, fear, grief, sadness. And we don't move with those. We get blocked by them. And if you're supported and given help moving with them, then you can really look at the whole process and be there with it, make some use of it. And the second one is that a lot of older people don't have the support, the information, and the advocacy to find out what their choices are. So we end up treating death as a medical emergency. We often, by the time we're old and dying, have many medical providers who are all focused on a different symptom rather than one who not only can coordinate our medical care, but who can see us as a whole person. So we become disenfranchised rather than supported for all of the things that are supposed to be going on at end of life.
So there's the opportunities, there's the challenges, and how does one put this all together and sort of wrap up what we need to attend to?
There are lots of models for what we call the tasks of dying, but I'll start a little bit ahead of it. Dr. Vicki Howard, put together what she calls the psychological tasks of aging, and they very much fluidly move into the dying process. And they are the process of slowing down, really being able to appreciate and savor the moment, and all that comes with that, and that knowledge that unfolds when you slow down. Part of it is recognizing that death isn't the most horrible thing that can happen to you. We have very old people who've said, outliving my cohort, having no one that I love left alive is a terrible thing. We know that people who are living with debilitating pain often wish they weren't alive. We know people who are in existential crisis for whom death would be a relief. And I remember working with one man who'd had a couple unsuccessful years of chemo who said to me, I wish I had died when I was supposed to. So that's one part of it. The second part is life review and all that that entails. We know a lot about that, finding out your values. The third part is transmission, which really is about taking those life values and giving them back. And that can be done as simply as being part of RSVP. because every time you do something, you are bringing the wholeness of you into it.
So let me just review for a moment those particular pieces to make sure I got them properly. So one part would be making choices, that you have the ability to make choices. Another is reviewing your whole life and seeing how it fits into sort of a whole cloth. And then the third part would be an opportunity to give back to the community.
Right, and that's where that gap in the circle of life gets filled in. So that transmission can be concrete things like RSVP. It certainly involves things like ethical will, where you get a chance to sit down and write up your values and blessings and pass them on not only to your kids, but maybe your great-grandkids who will never meet you. And another piece that I think is really important is having your advance directives done, because that in itself transmits the value to your family that you care enough about them not to leave them confused and frightened at a time when you can't speak. And then the fourth piece is really letting go. And as I said before, it's really the mastery of grief and all those emotions that come with it. But it's not just, as you get older, working with grief. It's also recognizing that you have developed concrete strategies for doing that, and that those are very valuable for other people to know about.
You know, it's fascinating because we spend so much time educating ourselves for various stages of our life, and we learn all about having kids and raising kids, and we study in school or prepare for our jobs. But this is something that generally, as a population, we don't do a lot of self-education about.
Yes. We would never assume that having a baby is about the 3 days before you deliver. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So how does hospice care fit into all of this?
Actually, everything we've been talking about is a hospice philosophy. Hospice care is a system of care very appropriate in the continuum of care to people who have life-limiting illnesses. The basic principles are that we support the family as a unit of care. We put the control and the choices back in their seat. We provide them with whatever they need. So on a physical level, that's a team of doctors, nurses, social workers, chaplains, personal care providers, grief counselors, volunteers, as much as they want of that. We also address their physical, psychological, spiritual needs as much as they want of that. And actually, although people think of hospice as the role of the dying, our job is really to help people celebrate their lives. And when we get them at a very close, with only a week left or so, we're not really able to do that. But as you've seen everything we've talked about, those are the things we want to be helping people achieve.
So it really does sound in many ways like an opportunity. And of course, you're with Hospice Care of Boulder and Broomfield counties, and there are other hospice places around. And I just want to thank you so much. This has been really interesting and helpful and hopefully educational for all of us. Thank you so much. And now we're going to go to Ramar Sutton, and he's going to talk about how we may want to move around our savings, of course, should we have any left these days.